Hello friends, in this episode we're going to discuss Polish court news. We have several instructive stories from so-called street lessons, the kind taught with fists and attacks over e-cigarettes under surveillance cameras, to harsh court verdicts for racism and dangerous incidents involving a knife. We'll break it all down in this video, so watch the video until the end. Nevertheless, the news isn't exactly cheerful, but please give a like and subscribe to the channel right now. Friends, thanks to everyone who takes a moment to like, support, and boost the channel. Well, let's get down to business. Yes, news from Polish court news. Well, let's probably start with the city of Legnica, because there the prosecutor's office has officially charged 26-year-old Ms. Karolina O., who, as you remember, we talked about this, attacked 13-year-old children right on the playground. We have already talked about Ukrainians, about their attitudes and so on, but the person involved in this case deserves special attention. Imagine this, 26 years old, 2 children of her own, and unemployed. You'd think, well, she's unemployed, so just stay at home, get welfare, take care of the kids, or look for a job. But no, apparently this woman decided that her true calling is to patrol. At children's playgrounds, acting as a supervisor of order, a sort of language patrol. Instead of setting an example for her own children, this lady found herself some very evenly matched opponents. Yes, 13-year-old teenagers. She approached a group of girls and rudely demanded that they stop speaking their native language. Yes, the children apologized. Well, we've already talked about this, yes. The woman thought that they were just mocking her, wondered what they thought they were doing, and decided to use force. A punch to the face and a broken nose, truly commendable behavior in quotes for a mother herself. Nothing more to add. And what's most interesting is that during the interrogation, citizen Karolina admits to the assault, yes, but when it comes to xenophobia, she says, no, nothing happened. You misunderstood everything. My God, what hatred. I'm doing it out of love. At the same time, she doesn't deny that she supposedly told the children that they are not on their own territory. I think by not on their own territory, she meant get lost to Ukraine. Well, that's some wonderful logic, right? When someone tells you to get lost to Ukraine, nothing xenophobic about that. Nothing xenophobic at all, because, well, what hatred? What could you possibly think? Yes, I have to say, fortunately, the law enforcement officers acted quickly, the lady was detained, and she was charged with minor bodily harm, violence, and hooliganism. Well, I wonder if they also added xenophobia. I think they probably included xenophobia too. Because the press secretary of the prosecutor's office, Liliana Lukashevich, has already noted that, given the hooligan nature of the actions, this teacher is facing a whole list of charges, 7.5 years in prison. Yes, the investigation is ongoing, and the woman who liked to discipline other people's children has been placed under police supervision. She has also been banned from approaching the playground and from contacting the victims. Yeah, that's some street policing right there. Wonderful story. Next up, friends. Well, honestly, I don't want to wish anything bad on her, but write in the comments what punishment you think would be appropriate for her. Should she get jail time or just be forgiven? Come on, is this really a big deal? She beat up Ukrainians. Next up, friends, we also have a story involving a Ukrainian. This happened on July 3rd, let me briefly remind you. At 8 p.m., a 19-year-old guy with his girlfriend, not bothering anyone, calmly talking on the phone, and then some local tough guys come up to him and say, "Give me your vape." He says, "No, I won't give it to you." And of course, the guy couldn't think of anything smarter than to whistle for his friends. As a result, the crowd attacked the one guy and beat him up. He ended up with a broken nose and a spinal injury. Well, it's clear these hyenas, or geniuses, whatever you call them, were happy with their win. The group celebrated, laughing about how fun it was. Yeah, but what next? What happens next? They started a massive brawl as a group at 8 p.m. on an open island in the city center, where there were more people than at a demonstration, and there were surveillance cameras on every pole. Well, what can I say? They're just idiots. So instead of getting a vape, the guys ended up with a criminal case. Thank God, the police easily pulled the footage from the cameras, questioned witnesses, and quickly identified, well, these so-called gifted instigators. As a result of this wonderful event, the 18-year-old hero in quotes, has already been formally charged with assault and nationality-based insults. I'm sure people asked, get back to Ukraine, why aren't you at the front? He will be held fully accountable under the Adult Criminal Code, moving on. The 15-year-old accomplice has been referred to juvenile court, where his personal case will be fully processed. The other participants are in the process of being identified, and I hope they are also confidently moving toward conversations with the investigator. So, dear comrades, someone wanted to show off their toughness and patriotism, but in the end, they wrecked their own future for no reason. I really hope it was all because of an e-cigarette under the city cameras. Well, that's a rare level of cleverness. Next, we have two more interesting news items, friends, also tied to Polish justice, to Polish themis. The stories are unpleasant, but I believe we need to get to the bottom of them with all due rigor. The city of Astralenko and the local regional court delivered a verdict to a certain citizen, Conrad K. Who, what do you think, did what? By the way, I always call Conrad Konrad. It's just easier for me. So Konrad decided to act on his worst impulses toward an 11-year-old child. Well, you know, there's a Polish expression lady boxer, but here he's a child beater. According to the prosecutor's office, the incident actually happened back on September 25th of last year in the town of Ostro-Mazowiecki. And citizen Konrad, upon seeing an 11-year-old boy on the street, the son of a Polish woman and a Nigerian citizen, couldn't think of anything better than to start publicly shouting racist insults. But this individual didn't stop at a verbal stream of consciousness. He also resorted to physical violence. He kicked the child twice in the thigh. For what reason, right? You might ask, but I don't know. The investigation took it seriously. The guy was questioned by the rules in a special blue room for minors, with a psychologist present to avoid traumatizing him. The most interesting thing is that the accused himself, with a straight face, denied his guilt until the very end. What are you talking about? That couldn't have happened. However, the prosecution had a full set of evidence, witness statements, and the testimony of the victim's mother. And on July 14, 2026, the court put an end to it. Konrad was found fully guilty of public insult and violence based on racial hatred. So friends, I have some sad news here. The result of the court's decision. 6 months of imprisonment with a 3-year suspended sentence. What does that mean in plain language? He was not sent to prison straight from the courtroom. He was given a 3-year probation period. If during these 3 years the citizen slips up even once, gets drunk again, or commits any offense, the suspended sentence will be revoked immediately. Right away, the suspension is cancelled and the person is jailed for the full 6 months. In addition, the citizen was strictly ordered to stay away from alcohol and other intoxicants. Plus, he has to pay that boy, the Afro-Polish kid, 500 zlotys in compensation. That's way too little, in my view. A kick in the butt may not hurt, but it's very insulting. In the prosecutor's office, the judge's decision was described briefly as justified and fair. I would say it's way too little. He got it. Write in the comments, what if a little Afro-Polish kid gets bullied on the street? Seriously, what then? I'm serious. I don't think this is an adequate punishment. At least they should have fined him 20 or 30,000 already. Next, news from Polish courtrooms. And the topic is, to put it mildly, not an easy one, right? We're looking into a case about what happens when someone tries to resolve a teenage conflict with a knife. In Elbląg District Court, on July 17, 2026, a sentence was handed down to the 18-year-old citizen Gracjan R. As a result, 3 years and 3 months in prison. The story unfolded in September 2025 in the park of the city of Paszlensk, if I'm not mistaken. Gracjan was 17 and had an ongoing conflict with a peer. Rather than resolving it with words or walking away, they chose to fight. Obviously, but understanding that we weren't just going to talk or play chess. Whoever wins at chess is right, huh? No, there would probably be a fight, but Gracjan went even further. The day before, he had already sprayed tear gas in his opponent's face, waved a knife around, and during the actual scuffle, he pulled out a blade and inflicted serious injuries on 2 teenagers. One of them received at least 7 stab wounds. At first, the accused tried to claim, "Oh my God, what are you talking about? Seriously? Come on, I'm not guilty of anything. I was just afraid for my life. That's why I stabbed them like that." What's not clear? That's it, understand, forgive me. But when it came to court, he kind of realized what was at stake, and the charge of causing serious bodily injury carries up to 20 years. So he kind of changed his mind, changed his position, fully admitted his guilt, repented, and asked for forgiveness. In the end, the parties reached a plea deal, and the case was handled on an expedited basis. Although you might say to me, is 9 months really expedited? Yes. Judge Bartosz Kulesza laid out the situation clearly when delivering the verdict. The aggressor is known, yes, Gracjan went too far, used a dangerous weapon, so his guilt in causing serious bodily harm and assault is fully proven. There were mitigating circumstances. The court noted the conflict was mutual, the victims also fought, and both the accused and the young man are just beginning adulthood. They did not impose the maximum sentence believing that the punishment should primarily be educational. Nevertheless, there aren't many concessions here. Yes, because the sentence is 3 years and 3 months of actual prison time, since 10 months spent in pretrial detention have already been credited to him. So he turned 18 behind bars. Next, there is a 10-year restriction prohibiting him from approaching the victims closer than 20 meters and a complete ban on any contact. You can't even like their posts on Instagram. Money. He is required to pay each of the victims 30,000 zloty in compensation. The judge's verdict here is quite clear. Knife fights in the park don't end with gaining respect, but with a real prison bunk and a ruined youth. Friends, that's how it is. Here, of course, yes, we can probably say a few more words about the situation in general. Because we're going to talk about a topic that has recently caused a lot of debate and alarming headlines. Is it really becoming dangerous to be a foreigner in Poland? And what do the latest data on the rise in offenses motivated by national or ethnic bias actually say? You can write in the comments how you feel. Are you worried about your kids, about yourself, or is everything fine for you? Let's break down the issue calmly and thoroughly. There's talk of a 30% increase in incidents in public discourse. Any normal person would feel anxious. It seems like the crime situation has taken a sharp turn for the worse, and the streets of Polish cities have turned into high-risk zones. However, any statistics require a competent and sober assessment. So let's briefly break this down right now. The first factor is large-scale migration. Because over the past few years, the social landscape of Poland has undergone major dramatic changes. The country has accepted an unprecedented number of foreigners in modern history. These include students, labor migrants, and refugees. Yes, 10 years ago, people looked at the Ukrainian with surprise. My God, some Ukrainian has arrived. Now the situation has changed. From a mathematical point of view, if the absolute number of people from a certain group in the country increases several times, then even if the previous percentage level of offenses remains the same, the sheer number of recorded incidents will inevitably go up. The second point, changes in registration practices. This is not a minor, but rather an important aspect of the work of law enforcement agencies and civil society institutions. Recently, Poland has significantly changed how it records offenses. The police and the prosecutor's office have started to classify ordinary disputes much more often under articles related to national and racial grounds, rather than letting them slide as ordinary hooliganism. Well, this really did happen. And in fact, the number of victims turning to the authorities has increased. People are now more likely to report aggressive incidents or insults and seek official investigations rather than staying silent. And in fact, such an increase in statistics often indicates not only a rise in the number of incidents themselves, but also that these incidents are no longer staying in the gray zone and are actually being recorded in official reports. The third point? And this is also a key point. Pre-election noise and economic pressure. The overall political background cannot be ignored either, as we have discussed more than once. During election campaigns, certain political forces eagerly use the topic of migration to stir up their own electorate. Rhetoric is being broadcast from every outlet. Competition for jobs, pressure on the social system. Simply put, they take jobs and live off social benefits at the same time. Exactly. And some of the most impressionable and not very smart citizens take this as an unspoken call to action. Well, that's why there are outbursts of inappropriate behavior on playgrounds, in public transport, and in street conflicts. So, what's left in the end? My friends, honestly, hand on heart, does a 30% increase in statistics mean that Poland has become dangerous for newcomers? Well, in my opinion, no, it doesn't mean that. Poland remains one of the calmest and safest countries in the European Union with a low level of overall street crime. The vast majority of the hundreds of thousands of foreigners who live, work, and study in the country every day have never encountered anything serious except for some verbal rudeness. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. The recorded increase is a key signal for law enforcement, which must swiftly and firmly crack down on any such incidents. Well, by the way, that's exactly what court records show. In most cases, that's what happens. We just discussed 4 cases. For an ordinary person, following basic personal safety rules and simple common sense remain, in my opinion, a reliable safeguard against the vast majority of trouble on the street. That's my opinion, and I'm saying this without any jokes or sarcasm. Please share your opinion in the comments. Friends, take care of yourselves and your loved ones. That's all for now. See you next time. And yes, a big shout out to the working class. Machinists, carpenters, truck drivers.